up, y'all? What up, Roland? What's up, Jesus? Happy Friday. RL says nobody cares. Jeez, bro. Lighten up, brother. What up, Mike? Yeah, this is a pre-fight show. This is a pre-fight. This is pre-fight. I wanted to kind of do a little pick your poison. You know what I mean? Kind of just had a little. Just wanted to talk a little boxing. Some stuff went down this week. Just wanted to chat with you guys. What up, Mike? What up, Michael Middleton? Mike Doe and Michael Middleton. According to Yams. What's up? What's up, y'all? Lulu. Both were stay busy fights to me. Okay, what's up? I mean, one of them, I mean, they're both championship fights. Cool, cool. All right, man. I got enough of you guys in here, man. Sorry for the old school video game music. If you ain't hip, I've been listening to a lot of Street Fighter Alpha 3 music. I don't know how much of a nerd you guys are, but I grew up in the arcades. So, all right, cool. Perfect. Let me jump right into it, y'all. A couple of topics I wanted to discuss. And I also wanted to go over this Aliak thing because it's been on my timeline for a little bit. I just haven't had a chance to put my 2 cents. I kind of feel responsible to speak on it. Carlos Dixon already right out the gate. $5 super chat with the noob. Oh, let me know that you a gamer too, man. Let me find out you're an old school Street Fighter gamer, man. It's all right, cool. Let me get this music off real quick, man. Awesome, cool. So just letting everybody know, tomorrow there's a couple fight cards going on. I know that I think OTX might have a card tonight. And as well, no, I didn't Jesus yet watch the Golden Boy cards last night. I got a little tired. You know, I was doing some daddy duty stuff. I want to see Shields fight Belanga. Awesome. So just wanted to quickly address a couple of topics. It's not going to be a super long stream. Like I said, I wanted to go over some of the cards because tomorrow might be, if not, we don't know where Top Rank's going, right? Like if you guys have an ESPN Plus subscription solely off the fact that for boxing, like might not need it anymore. You know what I mean? Like I don't know exactly where Top Rank's going. There's hints that they might go around a couple places. It might be a streaming platform, maybe a place where boxing never existed before. So Bob hasn't alluded anywhere, but I do know that tomorrow will be Top Rank's last boxing event. And so it's kind of bittersweet because we've seen it with like HBO, we've seen it with Showtime, we've seen it countless over and over and over that, you know, boxing's in a transitional stage where what we're familiar with and what we're used to is dying out. Now, you know, DAZN has been a place where been very active with boxing and been very consistent over the years. You know, and then we have new players like Amazon and Netflix that, you know, selectively kind of worked on a couple different fights, but they haven't been a very consistent platform like DAZN where just fight after fight after fight. And of course, you know, YouTube's still around where the Golden Boy card, I think, was on there as well. Give me Nicki Minaj. So with that being said, I guess I'll start with the first main topic, right? The one that probably everyone's going to be really watching, though, is the Claressa Shields fight that would be going down tomorrow in Detroit. I'm going to pull up pretty much the card. There's a lot of things on that card that I wanted to speak about. I mean, obviously, I'm never going to go against Claressa Shields. I mean, she's arguably the best female boxer, right, y'all? I mean, there's really no need to debate. You know, it's more of like, she gets past Lani Daniels, not looking past her, but unfortunately, like, it still doesn't scream potential upset in my eyes. Lani Daniels is, what is her betting odds for Claressa Shields? She's, what's the odds, right? Yeah, she's a minus 2,500. Claressa Shields a minus 2,500 to win, right? So doesn't scream competitive fight, only because that's how much better Claressa Shields is against all female boxers essentially around her weight class. So can't wait to walk one of my favorite boxers out soon. Some Kelly Vampirish mosh pit music. Hell yeah, man. That's what's up. Carlos, man, another super chat, man. $10 super chat. I'm old school. I'm 54 years old. Been playing since Atari. Now I play Xbox 360. That's what's up, man. Look, I'm a diehard old school head myself. I'm not 54, but I lived in the arcades. You know, I got fight sticks and stuff like that. So I'm familiar with putting quarters in and losing them very quickly, like on the old school Mortal Kombat. So definitely appreciate the super chats. As always, my guy. That stuff always goes to contributing to covering boxing and stuff. So, but yeah, like Jesus says, any news in Layla Ali? So far, silence. Like after Claressa Shields, I don't know if you guys seen the clip, but she kind of said that she has the money for Layla Ali. Layla Ali asked, she won't even entertain the conversation unless there's like 15 or 20 million dollars on the line just to have the discussion, and she'll consider coming out of retirement. If you guys haven't heard about the news, I've been living underneath a rock, but there hasn't been anything concrete from Layla. She hasn't confirmed she's seen it. She hasn't confirmed that she's still interested. She hasn't said, all right, I'm coming out. Nothing. So we'll see if Layla will actually take the bait, but there is video of Claressa Shields partnering up with some sort of music record label partnership, which I think is her boyfriend's papooses connection, where she essentially got the money from. But yeah, she has $15 million allegedly for her. So no news yet. So give me Callie Hawk, Jerome says. Is that who's on the card? Because I'm actually pulling up the card right now. I don't know about that. I feel like you're trolling me. But just quickly screen sharing the card, right? There's a couple names that a lot of you guys will be familiar with, right? Ultimately, Claressa Shields will be headlining it. But Tony Harrison makes his ring return on this card. And with that being said, I don't want to be like a guy that is going to judge what I don't know, but it feels like watching some interviews with Tony Harrison that there might be some potential concerns that a lot of fans have pulled up, where they've kind of mentioned that he doesn't visibly sound or seems to speak the same, which is never a good sign, a good sign of anything. So, I mean, hopefully it's just not really anything that's materializing from it. But if you guys take the time to look at some Tony Harrison interviews, not saying judge like you know, because we don't know, but pretty much at this point, no, it raises a little concern. I sense a little different speaking patterns, but for the most part, Tony Harrison comes back, and hopefully everything is healthy and everything's good. He's fighting essentially what seems like a tune-up. He's a guy that's 15-6, so we see some Tony Harrison coming back. Price Taylor is a guy on this card who is a heavyweight boxer who's a two-time Golden Gloves from New York. In America, we don't really have solid heavyweights on the rise, just maybe a couple floating around. So this is a guy that they've been talking about. He's 8-0, 6 knockouts. But those are pretty much the fights that I will be pretty much tuning in for the most part. Ali's retired, past her prime. She should be a big fish in a small pond. And that's really the thing, is like I'm not really a fan of the fight. Like as a person who realizes how much better Claressa Shields is against all the competition that she's in right now, I just don't like the idea of her coming out of retirement. And it's similar to like a Mike Tyson retirement for how long Layla Ali's been out of the ring. I know Pacquiao came out and essentially had a great showing, but in this case, Layla will be coming out and arguably fighting one of the best women boxers of all time. And the sport has evolved, has changed. She's older as well. It would just raise concerns if the fight happened. Now, I get it. Claressa Shields would have a huge marketable casual fight, where at that point, it creates a lot of attention for her. And it would essentially spark a huge interest amongst casuals because of the fact of the Layla, the Ali name. But, I'm just not a big super fan of it. So, but hey, money talks, bullshit walks, right? And if they have $15 million, I'm coming out of retirement, and I've never been in retirement to fight Claressa Shields. So I got a 5-leg parlay. Jason says Navarro, Vargas, Shushu, Zayas, Claressa. That's a solid, you know what I mean? Like, you can't really go wrong. I mean, the bigger the parlay, the more of a chance of an upset, because it is boxing, right? But, you know, Claressa should definitely win. Emiliano should win. Steven Navarro. Let me pull up that card real quick. I didn't look at his opponent yet. I know Steven Navarro. I did look at it, but I forgot. Steven Navarro's fighting Christopher Riaz, 11-2. So essentially, you know, Steven Navarro is new. He's 6-0, so anything can happen to a young guy like that. Shushu should get past his opponent. I know last time he had a competitive fight was with a fighter from Africa, but I think he's learned from that. I think stylistically, I think this would be in favor for him. I think the ones that you should be worried about is the Steven Navarro one, because he is, like I said, arguably new, 6-0, extremely talented. Don't get me wrong. The kid's amateur background is amazing. He has a lot amazing wins against a lot of great guys. But you just never know, because I remember I went to Robisi Ramirez's pro debut. He was the gold medalist that beat Shakur. And I watched him get dropped, and he lost his first professional fight. So you never know, right? But, and then the Zayas fight is scary in a sense, because Xander Zayas is facing the guy who just beat Charles Conwell. So Xander is positioned to win the fight because it's a top-ranked fight. They believe in him. He's next in line for the WBO title, World Championship fight. But because of that, you got to take in account this guy just beat the dark horse of the division that many people felt Charles Conwell would have gave a lot of people a tough fight. So you have to give this guy a lot of consideration. And it's a pretty credible win in this point of his career. So with that 5-leg parlay, I mean, going with the favorites, I mean, I would pick all the favorites as well. But Zayas would be the one that you never know, because he's facing probably the most competitive opponent amongst all of those guys. So D'Angelo says she's scared. One player. Yeah, I'm half Asian. I'm half Korean, half black. PS on a boxing tip. Junto Nakatani versus Bam would feed families. Hope it happens one day. They try to make that fight, Coley, but unfortunately, Mr. Honda stepped in the way and doesn't want it right now. But Brian Norman Jr. beats Devin. I mean, that's a close fight. I mean, you got a guy who's arguably unknown to top competition, and you got a guy who's moving up in his third weight class after coming off of a very disinteresting fight. A dominant win, but, you know, what many people felt was a very boring fight against a washed opponent. But, you know, everyone gets criticized for who they face. But Devin is edging the favorite in the betting odds, but I'm assuming only because of his experience and things that he's already done. So, very dangerous fight. I really haven't really put too much time into it. The fight's so far out right now. Probably have a better pick when it gets closer. When is the fight? They fight tomorrow, but Ali is not. Yeah, Ali shouldn't have been talking. I mean, you know, they're fighters, right? Leia coming out would be worse than Mike Tyson. Hope it doesn't happen unless it's fixed. Ali's punked. Ali's punking out. Do you have... No, I'm half Korean, brother. I know I look Filipino, but I'm half black. I'm half Korean. Jorge Garcia sleeping upset waiting to happen. I mean, it's not that I'm saying that I'm picking him to win, but he has a huge chance to win. I think style-wise, Charles Conwell is a guy that likes to fight, and that, I think, favored Jorge Garcia. Xander's a guy that can box and move, so that will allow him to have a better chance of outboxing Jorge Garcia. But once again, it is probably the toughest fight out of that 5 parlay that I see up there. So she was wouldn't have fought her for real if she wasn't talking shit. She's been yapping for hey, fair game, right? So I see your point, cousin. Polanco versus Randall. Polanco may get the upset. Oh, may get upset? I mean, I think Polanco is an extremely talented guy, and I know that he just went the distance with Maidana, but he did drop him at the end. But he's been a wrecking ball. Randall Bailey, I mean, why did I say Randall Bailey? Shit, let me pull this card up real quick. Quentin Randall. I said Randall Bailey. I'm going super old school. Quentin Randall is a guy that has a pretty decent win against Boca Chica, which many people thought he was going to lose the fight. So there's some upset possibility, but I expect Polanco to win and dominate in fashion. So the question, does he stop him? Because Brian Norman wasn't able to. So Shakur versus Lamont, maybe. Ali's on a punk, but she's writing a check. She can't cash. I agree. I look Samoan. That's funny. All right. So getting back to, like I said, to the whole gist of the Claressa Shields thing is that, you know, if she gets past his opponent, obviously the topic is going to go Layla Ali, Layla Ali, Layla Ali. If she takes it, you know, it's a fight that would more likely sell, but unfortunately have the similar effect to Jake Paul and Mike Tyson, but just in women boxing, in my opinion. So, not a fan of it. I'll cover it. It obviously makes sense. It will boost her career and give Layla a nice payday. But at this point, it just really becomes a very, very tough position for Claressa, because if she beats Lani Daniels, like, who's next? It's probably going to be the Australian girl that was at her media workout that you guys seen, been going back and forth. So, but on a side note, going to the top ranked card, I'm going to pull this up. We were talking a little bit about it. There's a lot of fights on here. Headline, like I said, Xander Zayas versus Jorge Garcia Perez. Guy that beat Charles Conwell recently. So this would be definitely the toughest fight on there. Shushu Carrington will be fighting for an interim title because originally he was slated potential next for Stephen Fulton. So for that, Stephen Fulton is rumored to move up and wait to fight with Shockey Foster. He couldn't get a couple opponents like Ray Vargas and others, Castro to face, so he just ended up getting Matias Haita, who's a guy that's from Namibia, never really fought out of Namibia, and it'll be his first time fighting in the States at the age of 27. BoxRec has him at number 19. I expect Shushu to do his thing. If he gets him out in a devastating fashion, it just helps his case why he needs to fight some of the top guys. Shushu's been asking for Espinoza, Fulton, Leo, Nick Ball, but we'll see, right? He's a low reward type of fighter that a lot of those guys see. Adding to the card, we just talked about Rohan Polanco and Quentin Randall. This would be a great win because Quentin Randall is coming off a Boca Chica win, and he did go to distance with Brian Norman Jr. So if Rohan Polanco, who is this aggressive Dominican fighter that's just beating the shit out of people, if he dominates him, it only makes sense that he's next in line for Brian Norman, Devin Haney winner. Not saying that they would take the fight because it's not a marketable fight, but if Top Rank forces it, essentially, because he's in the Top Rank stable, and Norman wins, I mean, it kind of makes sense. But Devin, if he wins, I don't know if he'll want to fight Rohan Polanco because there's really no essential money in that. So, but I don't know. I really don't know what goes about in their business. So, what up, Cruz? When she does. Con, what's up, Ron? Yeah, I'm looking forward to the Xander card. I feel like Polanco Randall's going to be an underrated fight for sure. Yeah, I mean, Quentin Randall's been talking real spicy, saying that Polanco's overrated. Polanco has been saying, he told me that he's going to put, you know, kind of belt to ass to him. So, we'll see. Emiliano Vargas is also on the card as well. One of the three Vargas brothers of the dynasty of Fernando Vargas. Probably the one that gets the most attention right now. Juanma Lopez, you know, he's the son of the world champion that I'm sure that if you guys, I mean, it's in his name, Juanma Lopez, right? So I think him and his dad were both Olympians. He was on the 2024 Puerto Rican Olympic team. So he actually got dropped his last fight. So a little concerning. I guess it was considered like kind of a slip, but anyways, you never want to see a young prospect get dropped in their second fight, regardless if it was a slip or not. And you know, there's a lot of good talent on here. And lastly, Julius Ballo, who's a kid that's 22. He has an extensive amateur background. I think he's won like 15-time. He's like a 15-time national champion. He's been in the ring with a lot of guys. Keith Colon, he beat Keith Colon, Emiliano Vargas, Steven Navarro, who's on the card, Jamal Harvey, who is an American Olympian. There's a lot of guys on his resume that essentially, like, he's got good wins. And so he actually fought Cashflow, Floyd Diaz. That's interesting. He lost. That must have been earlier in his career. But I'm looking forward to seeing this young kid, to see how he'll transition to the pros. I've seen some of his amateur fights online, so he has like a YouTube page with like 100 subscribers. So very interested to see how that kid turns out. And then as well, we got Jan Carlos Santana, another Dominican fighter who's going to be fighting Aaron Alamandia, a Mexican fighter. And he's been in the ring with Angelo Leo and Luis Neri. Came up short against those guys. So essentially, this guy only loses to winners. So very tough opponent. We'll see how Aaron does in that fight. But that's the top rank card, and that might be the last boxing card on ESPN for quite some time, which is insane to think about, because with Showtime, HBO, and ESPN out, like, those are major broadcast networks that, with them no longer broadcasting Top Rank, we haven't been in a situation like that for a very long time. Like, at least I know when I was growing up, there's always been boxing on major broadcast networks. So it's definitely coming to a completely different time. So bittersweet, good card, but at the same time, last card, you know? So we've seen this already multiple times in the last couple years, and I don't know where Top Rank's going to go. So especially with all this Turki Ali Sheik stuff, which I'm going to get into the Ali Act stuff and talk about it a little bit with you guys too, because I feel like it's responsible for at least my end to at least acknowledge it and speak about it, because, you know, we're such a big platform, and I always feel like Fighters First is kind of the concept that we bring on here the most. So, but I'm going to read the chat, and then I'm going to get to the Ali Act stuff and give some of my thoughts and kind of share some of my opinions about the whole ordeal. And if you guys want to contribute to it, please do. And if you have questions, like, I'm still dissecting it myself. So Ali got called out in front of the whole world. You ain't gonna do shit. You get 15 million. Anybody can get it. Nobody can get a pass, Ali. Yeah, I mean, look, she said it. She said, give me 15 million, and so be it, right? So we'll see. But she hasn't spoken, at least from what I've seen on social media, or done any interviews about it. So I was going to ask, who else would be next for her outside of Ali? Like I said, there's this Australian girl that showed up to her media workout. She signed with Demetrius Salita. I mean, it's kind of it's an obvious play, right? It was a very respectful confrontation. I mean, I'll pull up the clip that we have, that if you guys haven't seen it yet. So Che Kennelly is right here. She's obviously a heavyweight, you can see based off her size. I mean, that would be essentially the next opponent if the Layla Ali fight doesn't happen. So yeah, so definitely check that out. But that'll probably be the most logical fight next, which is still not a marketable fight. But, you know, who else does she have? Definitely see some more Bam and Foster on these cards. Yeah, man, Bam already is going to be on that Saudi card. He's going to be unifying with another champion who's coming off a big upset win. So it's definitely going to be a really good year for Bam if he's able to accomplish that. You know, Shockey Foster's, I think he's waiting for a PBC card date to be able to fight Stephen Fulton, because I don't know what Top Rank's doing right now. So, I mean, there's a lot of, you know what I mean? So, a lot of people are also sleeping on Jorge Garcia, a.k.a. Chino. That guy can fight, and I heard he's a very durable, as much as you mentioned. Yeah. So, as much as I favor Xander to win the fight because he's a guy that moves and boxes, I mean, I was at his last fight in New York, and it was a fight where there was holes. There was some holes. He fought the guy that Roy Jones trained. There were some holes. He admitted to. Xander was coming off the fight where I think he fought a heavy-hander puncher, Slowa Spomer. Yeah, that's what it is. And he gave him his first loss, a Germany fighter. I guess he was born in Kyrgyzstan but lived in Germany. But, yeah, he had Xander hurt in that fight slightly. So, in this case, Jorge is definitely durable. And, you know, rivalries, man, Puerto Rican versus Mexico. So, and I felt bad, Charles, given that he was the 1 foot in getting the title. Yeah, I thought honestly tomorrow we were going to get Xander versus Charles, but that's how boxing works. So, You never know, man. This dude Jorge, even though he has a very deceptive record, he was 32-4 when he fought Charles, and lost to guys like I think Carlos Ocampo, which a lot of people don't really give him a lot of credit. I think he had a pretty okay performance against Fundora, but when you see names like on down his resume, you kind of feel like Charles is going to get the win. But I was one of the ones that was wrong as well. And it's boxing, man. So Ali a punk, period. Ali was asked a question about fighting Claressa coming out of retirement and amount of money, and she said at least 20 million, not 15. So Claressa just talking for no reason. Well, she said about 15 or 20. So obviously they're not going to want to just start off with 20 million, right? She said 15 to 20. So start low at the number that she said, and if she needs more, then kind of work your way up. You know what I mean? Super, like, it's smart negotiation. Like, you got to be, like, why would we give her the higher, number? Let's just call her out for the number she said, which was 15 as well. 15 to 20. Well, we have 15. So, I only want to do it, but she's scared. I mean, I don't know, man. The way that boxing's moving, anything can happen, man. There's a lot of crazy stuff that's happening. Devin Haney-ass must have a replacement standby because he may pull out versus Norm. I don't know. To be honest with you, Devin's never been a guy that's ever pulled out of a fight, right? I know that Devin's been the butt of many jokes, but he's never pulled out of a fight. He's always been consistent on making weight. When he signs it, he signs it. So I wouldn't give Devin the idea that he's going to pull out. I know that there's been stuff about that drug testing situation, which they did work out. But I'm going to give Devin the benefit of the doubt, Jesus, just because of the fact that he never has. So it doesn't give me a reason why I should be worried about that. I know Sean Porter made some comments. I mean, that's fine. I mean, it is considered a fight where it could be risky because of how powerful Brian Norman seems to be in his last couple fights. So, but at the end of the day, man, fighters see something. Like, Devin's not going to take this fight if they don't see something, or unless the money is really that good. And, sometimes it's hard to turn down fights where the money is so much better than, like, you can get anywhere else, even if the fight's tough. You just kind of just say, yeah, man, screw it. Give me the money, and if I lose, I lose. So what? It's boxing. Yeah. Also, Polanco kind of been on those better performances spree, given that he stopped Fabian Maidana last. He didn't stop Fabian, but he dropped him. It seemed like he was gonna stop Fabian Maidana, but he actually went the distance with Fabian Maidana. It went all 10, but in the 10th round he dropped him. But the perception was, the later the fight was going to go, he was going to, get him out. So if he stops Rando, then I can see him fight Norman Jr. in a rise, given that they're both top. Yep, exactly. And yeah, maybe he would be the backup fighter if something happened on Devin, right? They just clout chasing right now because Layla didn't even say anything about Claressa. She just was talking to Jake Paul about the bag, just playing around and joking. Yeah, I mean, look, I don't know if she's just saying it to say it, because the fact is, like, it sounds nice. Like, give me 15, 20 million. And she said, to be fair, on Layla's part, she said 15 or 20 million, and I'll consider. Didn't say yes, I'll consider talking about it. But don't even come and entertain me unless you have 15, 20 million. So she hasn't confirmed, like, yes, give me that, and I will do it. It's kind of like, it's hard to say no. So if Ali was still with Yaya, he'll make her ass fight. Chill, D'Angelo. Bring back boxing to HBO Max. They're missing money with how we have the H. I really don't think that we're going to get HBO back. Like, I think we just have to let it go at the end of the day. I'm pretty sure that HBO, when they got out of boxing, they got out of boxing, like, for real. And not just got out of boxing for, I don't know, a couple years. I just really think, because it was such a huge part of, like, their identity, that for them to let it go, I don't really see them now coming back and asking for it, especially how boxing's maneuvering right now. Because at that point, if they come back, they're going to need some superstars for the network, right? Because that's what's going to drive the subscribers. What boxers would they shed out a lot of money to have them fight on the network? Like, what promotional company would they be interested doing? And on top of that, if there is someone they're interested in, it's like, how consistent, how reliable can they be? Because if they're interested in getting like Gervonta Tank Davis, I mean, he's been inconsistent lately. Top Rank doesn't really scream out, give them the biggest budget known demand, with how their fighters are maneuvering, as well as like the Keyshawn situation. So, they don't really have like mega stars. So all these budgets would be a smaller budget, because unless someone really believes in it. But I don't think HBO is going to invest in the state of boxing right now, because they don't have guys like Floyd Mayweather and De La Hoyas and Pacquiao's and all those type of fighters that are generating that type of amount of attention. And plus, the pay-per-view model was so broken at this point with illegal streaming. Like, where are they going to get their money and investment back? Because they would have to do pay-per-views, and pay-per-views seems to be kind of slowly dying out with how the numbers they used to produce. Because I think the last $1 million pay-per-view they did was Triple G Canelo 2, if I'm not mistaken. So we're far from that type of promotion and that type of, you would need a Canelo and stuff like that. So I just don't see it happening, cousin. I know it's as sad as it sounds. It's just sad we kind of have no big female names in boxing. The ones that were relevant have all been beaten by shows. That's what happens. She had to go through the gauntlet, of all her names of people that thought they have a chance. But Top Rank's going under from what I'm hearing. Yeah, I mean, we'll see who will invest into them, at this point. Ali was just joking around, but Claressa was just desperate for a big pay-per-view. I mean, look, I think she's doing the right thing. I think she's definitely trying to make the biggest fights happen. It would be a humongous fight if she was able to secure a Layla Ali fight, because obviously the Ali name, but I don't know. I just don't think so. You think Australian girl a bigger fight than Shadesha Green's? I think the Green fight's way bigger than got history. I agree. I like the Shadesha Green fight, but somewhere along the line, MVP and Claressa is going to have to come to terms and work things out. Not saying that they wouldn't, right? But they'll have to come to terms and work it out. I was just saying, like, what's a safe fight if she can't get the Layla Ali fight, and the MVP negotiations don't work out for the Shadesha Green fight? It's going to be the Australian chick, because the simple fact is that she signed with the same promoter she's with. Is easy to make. It's in-house. Why not, right? Layla's waiting on real company to put forth the offer. MVP Nikita Jake Paul on Netflix. Not no duct tape promotion company. Claressa Shields with. I mean, look, 15 million is 15 million at the end of the day. I know there's probably some sort of thing that you have to also negotiate a network, right? I mean, they were talking about Cowboy Stadium or T-Mobile, so the venue would be solid. If the money's legitimate, that's real. So what network would pick it up at that point? Would it be pay-per-view? Would you watch a Claressa Shields versus Layla Ali pay-per-view? I mean, I think at a point that would be the thing that they would do, right? Why would you put that on like a network television when you already have the money? Because the networks are the ones that give you the money. So then you can make the fight, and then, you go about that way. But if they have money and they're willing to do that to invest into the fight, they might as well just do their own pay-per-view distribution, Maybe they'll have to find some sort of reliable network that can host it. But at that point, they wouldn't need the budget from the, and maybe they can do like a percentage or a fee to work with the app or the network. But outside of that, they wouldn't really need the network to fund the money if that was the case. But either or. I don't know, man. Shadesha would be a bigger fight, but she's way too sloppy. She wouldn't. Oh, you're talking about compared to the Australian girl? Yeah, I mean, because she's fighting on arguably very big female cards, so the eyes have been on her, and she just fought her previous rival. But at the end of the day, I don't know. I mean, we'll see how it works. Free on Netflix would be the choice for. I mean, that's a possibility. I'm just trying to think, like, would Netflix wouldn't have to pay something, like, because they would want the fight. You know what I mean? Like, if Netflix wants the fight, what does the fighters get out of it, right? So they would have to negotiate some sort of thing. But I don't know, man. I really don't know. That's something that no one really spoke about. They never really spoke about the network. For Xander is a better boxer between him and Chino, but I feel Jorge is gonna fight Xander for sure. Gonna rough and given apart. From the text here about Xander hasn't been pushed enough to see what he has. That's why I'm saying like that's probably the toughest fight for sure on that card, because it's just still unknown what Xander's capable of doing, because Jorge just came and just beat Charles Conwell. It's a good win. So imagine saying you got 15 million for someone else, but you're hardly getting paid 1 million. They're not fooling no. Look, I'm not saying it's real or not, you know, but I see your point. You know, I don't know if it's just a way to call her bluff or essentially building some sort of publicity for this current fight, because the fact is that video and all that stuff dropped in the lead up to the promotion for this fight. So people are definitely going to tune in this fight to see what would be next. Is she going to face Layla Ali, right? So if Layla doesn't fight, Claressa would have to fight a dude. Agree or not? Chill out, bro. Y'all need to chill out. I also heard from Top Rank, just like Navarrete being a roofer before, Chino apparently was a hot dog vendor, so you know it's going to be rough. Most of his losses have been controversial. I haven't watched a lot of his fights, to be honest with you, so I'm not going to act like I know him, and I'm going to give like a perfect analogy of how he fights. I do know that I picked against him in the Charles Conwell fight, and when he did win, he definitely for sure put 154 on notice in my eyes. So he's a spoiler at most. I agree. We're driving down to see Claressa fans. We're Demon fans that don't think she can beat a man. Them taught Layla Ali everything she knows about boxing. No cap. I taught Ali. Yo, what up, Mo? You tripping? It's understandable. We got Bud, but Bud may be on the way out after we got Dev and Tank. Tank gonna come outside. Yeah, we'll see. Zayas might lose. What up, Raphael? No, Mike McCallum taught Ali. He must be married to her and trainer. All right, I'm going to read a couple more, and I'm going to get into this Ali act since we're talking so much about Ali. I think Xander is top 3 most talented 154-pounder right now. What up, Cool Q? I also think Fedora ducked him. What's your thoughts? I don't think he ducked him. I think he just felt like there was better opportunities for him. I mean, at a certain point, I think he was trying to chase after the Crawfords or unification titles and ended up locking in a Tim Tszyu rematch, which definitely fucking made him look like an absolute monster. So... but I know that people feel Tim is kind of washed at this point. So, but at some point, if Xander does get this title, they're going to have to fight at some point. So, things got to make sense, you know. She was, with all due respect, with Slobber. yeah, I agree. Slobber, you mean? Yeah, Clobber. True. Even if she was in her prime, I don't think she would have a chance. Yeah, I mean, the sport has evolved so much. And ironically, I watched not too long ago was... Ali versus Frazier when she fought Frazier's daughter, and when I watched it, it was just a very sloppy match, unfortunately. And I'm not discrediting Layla Ali in any sort, but you can see how much women boxing has evolved technically. So my bad. Ali was no merit to the body snatcher, young one. At most, I can see MVP signing Layla and then getting a Netflix deal done. I mean, that would make sense. You know, why wouldn't you want to get her? I mean, you had her on the broadcast team, so. Was it bad in taste that ESPN girl brought up the hot dogs? No. I mean, that's what they do, you know. Roger Mayweather trained her, my bad. It's all good, Raphael. I knew what you meant. Big age difference. Claressa Shields is 30 years old. Layla Ali is 47 years old. Does anyone really... I personally, as a fight fan, no. But I get it, Nixon. It's just one of those type of fights that has a marquee name where it says Shields versus Ali. And people will watch, just like Jake Paul and Tyson, so... He did look embarrassed about the temper, so I saw it during the press conference. I mean, at the end of the day, man, it's just their way of kind of showing that he came from humble beginnings. Nobody really wants to talk about stuff like that anyways. Tim isn't washed. He's just not the best at 154. I mean, at the same time, I mean, how do you fight a guy at 154? You know? That's just what people felt, but I was wrong. I would be afraid of Ali, but Jorge's smart, and he is now apparently rents his car in youngsters in his home state. Chino be making moves. That's what's up, man. So let me move on to this Ali acting, because I've been kind of wanting to speak about it a little bit. I haven't really made like a lot of public statements on it. it's just one of those type of things where I'm theory crafting for the most part, but we know what the play is, right? If you guys aren't really familiar of what the Ali Act is, or what they're trying to currently do with this, um, Ali Act reformment changes. I mean, hold on, let me pull some stuff really quick. Let me close this up. Sorry, y'all. But really, if you guys really don't know anything about the Ali Act, right? Like you don't know anything, you don't know, like definitely take your time to Google it. I mean, it's a very important thing. Let me close this out. Sorry, I got all these things out, right? Um, so pretty much, yeah. Let me get this. I'm gonna read some of these bullet points that I got about this. This is gonna where it's gonna get a little boring, y'all. So you guys don't really care about fighter safety and them making money and all this type of stuff. This is probably the part that's gonna put you to sleep for the most part. Blah blah blah. Let me close this. Let me close this. Close this. All right. So the Ali Act, it's formerly known as the Muhammad Ali Boxing Reform Act. It's pretty much it's a U.S. federal law, so it applies to America, right? But most times, all the big fights happen here. But it's pretty much designed to protect professional boxers from exploitations, right? It's been an add-on to another form of an amendment. It's here. What is it? By all means, it was what is it? 1996. They had some sort of Professional Boxing Safety Act. That's what it is. So they had a Professional Boxing Safety Act of 1996, which is kind of the stuff that talks about how they work on their medicals and all that type of stuff. While the Muhammad Ali Boxing Reform Act, which was added on the 2000s, right, about 4 years later, was to kind of protect them financially. So this was an add-on, financially protects them when they had something to protect them, like medically and physically. So for that most part, it kind of prevents the whole idea of a monopoly, right? The whole thing is like you never want monopolies because it's never good, because they're able to control everything and dictate the whole situation. And nobody wants dictatorship in anything, right? So that's the whole ordeal. They prevent like advisors and managers to be one and the same, because if I was the promoter, my best interest is to try to make the best things for the network and make the best fights, while the manager's job is to protect the interests of the fighter. Obviously that's a conflict of interest, because how can I worry about the fighter when I'm trying to worry about putting on the best fights essentially for my network? At that point, I would kind of not be looking at the best interest, because I would be looking to put him in the most risky fights and all that type of stuff, while the manager is looking for the most lucrative, most safe route, at the end of the day. So by having those two the same, I mean, by all means, that's kind of what's happened with Don King and all that type of stuff. So never, ever, ever, ever want that. And that's kind of what essentially what's been going on in other sports like the UFC. The UFC doesn't have any type of protection programs or things like that. Not like a safety act, but more simply the fact of protecting them so they don't get exploited financially. The big important thing too is also like they keep the sanctioning bodies not intact with it too, because with the UFC, what they've done is they're able to create a situation where if you want to fight for the title, you have to sign to them to fight for that, right? In the case of the sanctioning bodies now, and I don't know if by all means technically if the Ali Act has something for that, but like that's kind of like the gist of it though, is that they're just trying to make sure like things go away where essentially things don't get monopolized, right? But how the UFC structure though is like you just have to sign with them if you want to fight for the belt. And appears to be the best fighter and the most marketable fighter, for you to change your life, you have to fight and compete for that fighter. So what recently has happened is there's been kind of an Ali Act amendment that's been pushed by like people from TKO and Ari Emanuel and Dana and that side, with the new introduction of the whole entire organization that they're bringing in the sport. So for the most part, I mean, they're wanting to virtually try to do something similar to the UFC. And kind of what it is like they're not going away and doing away with the Ali Act, but they're creating something called like a UBO. And essentially like what the UBO is like, it's no different than the structure that they've already presented, where they're able to essentially create a set of rules where they're able to bypass the current situation, have fighters sign to them and compete for a single promotional title. There's a lot of things that is very heavily specific that they've done that has been buried away in the text. If you guys are interested in it, you guys can go and look up the PDF. It's very like nuanced and boring. I know, like I said, this is the boring part, right? Everybody wants to talk about Layla Ali and Claressa Shields, but by my part, I feel like I have to talk about it. But you can look up the Ali Act Amendment. It's like the Revival Act, right? It is called Revival. Muhammad Ali American Boxing Revival Act. What a name, right? So, let me put this up. Let me close my email really quick. All right, I'm going to screen share this for you. All right. So for a lot of people who hasn't really been tuned in and been watching and hearing about it, right? Like I said, the Muhammad Boxing Reform Act was an add-on to essentially the Professional Boxing Safety Act. This is essentially to amend it and kind of be something parallel next to it. They're going to create this. It's a bipartisan bill that has actually a Republican and Democratic involved. So it's not going to seem like it's catered to one party. Obviously, Trump's going to have to be involved. And you know how everyone in politics are cahoots, and Trump and Dana has been very close. So obviously there's probably going to be an assumption that Trump is going to like the idea. Very, very or assumes that he likes it because he came up in a time promoting boxing at his hotel during the time before the Muhammad Ali Act was really active like that. So he's going to love the idea because that's kind of what he was doing during that time. So from what I hear, they want to create their ranking systems and belts. Yeah, I'm not for revoking the Ali Act, and I'm not going to side with the fighters. And what's interesting is like this is the thing. They're not revoking the Ali Act. Like, so this is what I mean. Like, essentially by reading it, it's like you can have this or you can go this way. Essentially, we're trying to amend it where you can have virtually either or. But this is where it becomes very problematic. At the state of where boxing is and promoters are and the networks and stuff like, there's not really a lot of backing outside of what's behind TKO. And fighters themselves, they're prize fighters, right? So would you want to fight for the sanctioned body belts over here and go with the Ali Acts, essentially? Or is essentially these people over here wanting to pay you a whole bunch of money and you can fight over here through this situation? So for the most part, these guys right now actively fighting won't actually feel the change. Like, this is something that's not going to be something we're going to see anytime soon, right? So like if a lot of fighters do choose to go with TKO and they are able to extend this unified boxing organization, what it's going to do is going to create a place where the fans are going to perceive the best fighters are there, and it takes away the credibility of the other spots, right? And they're going to want to see eventually people to fight the best, which happens to be perceived over on that side, right? So it's kind of like a long play. It's not a short play. It's a long play. So they're going to build a reputation by continuing to get fighters to fight underneath their new set of rules, which they're probably going to get heavily overpaid, more than anyone can actually offer, which the fighters should essentially go and fight over there. That's where the money's at. That's kind of what you're seeing with everyone that's in Turkey and things of that, right? So for that sake, it's going to create a pattern where like, whoa, all the best fights are in Turkey, all the best fights in Saudi Arabia, all the best fights are on TK, all the best fights over there, right? Causing other promoters to have to force to kind of work with them if they can't get their fighters to fight because they're not able to get network deals or broadcasting deals or the money. So they're kind of forced right now because the amount of money is going on. But eventually they're going to keep reeling in fighters and signing them with TKO. And eventually that will kind of create the monopoly situation. Once they can monopolize the situation, it's up to them to determine if they want to continue to pay them with the inflated amount of money or change it. The big thing that when you Google and look up the whole entire amendment thing is that a lot of the talking points has been talking about things they've changed about the Professional Boxing Safety Act. That itself sounds great because apparently like some states they don't have a minimal per round. So what they've implemented is like through the UBO, which is like the TKO stuff, we'll make sure that fighters have a minimal per round, which is $150. We're gonna make sure that healthcare goes from $10,000 to $25,000, which is a lot of money for small club shows. Which it kind of starts to destroy the smaller places because if they're able to establish this UBO and more fighters eventually go there, because the UBO, this is gonna sound crazy too, the UBO allegedly is also not able to co-promote. So like if you go the UBO route and you go the other way, you can't fight for the UBOs essentially. So they're very specific on how they're crafting these things. But anyways, the proposed amendment where it's like we're gonna make healthcare go from $10,000 to $25,000. But there's some things that are very interesting that it tailors more towards the UFC facilities and the things that TK already has, right? So check this out. I was listening to this podcast, which you guys, if you really, really want to get into it, like really, 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 really want to get into it, right after the stream, it's a $5 Substack. Is a Substack. Hey, not the face. It was a good listen. It broke down a lot of very, 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 very specific things that I kind of skimmed through the bill. I'm still going through it. I'm still learning through it, but it's an hour. You can go on YouTube. You can hear it. They have like a 30-minute version of it where if you want to listen to the full, you have to pay the $5 Substack. So, but even in the kind of short portion of the Hey Not the Face podcast, you still get a lot of information in it, right? So, like for you, Nixon, if you're interested, definitely check it out. It's like a big rabbit hole. But from what I was listening and reading and trying to understand is that with the UBO, they have certain things that is required. And as much as like the great things that it sounds like they're gonna raise money per round and give people higher health care, and it aims for standardized drug testing and medical requirement, which they didn't specify. They didn't specify the specifics of what drug testing, so it could be any type of drug testing. So that's kind of a red flag. But the idea is that they want standardized drug testing of any sort, which could mean it's a really good thing or a really bad thing based off the drug testing organization they choose. But the really interesting, the very controversial thing that I'm looking at is that to be a UBO, you have to have certain requirements outside of that. You actually have to have a training facility. This sounds crazy. To be a UBO, so to qualify to be a UBO, you actually have to have a training facility where you're able to have the fighters train at. In addition to paying the fighters health insurance when they fight, you also have to pay them health insurance when they train at your facility that you have to be a UBO. Ain't no small promoter or small anybody's going to be able to have that and afford that. So essentially, if they are able to monopolize the big names and the small promoters can't compete or become a UBO, essentially prevents any type of real startups unless there's some real money, or even small club shows of even existing, right? Because they're not, even if it's not a UFC facility, because that's what the TKO would use for boxers. They would just go bring them to the UFC facilities that they've already established. So, and the health insurance while they train at your facility and when they fight, that's very costly. And I'm sure at a point where because UFC has so many employees, they get a prorated amount. From what I'm understanding, from hearing from not the Face Substacks podcast, is that like it makes sense. They probably have a subsidized prorated amount that they can offer these type of insurance to knock out their competitors and prevent type of upcoming establishments existing, right? So it's just very convenient that the requirements to be a UBO is coming from a place that already has these type of things and not things that they're looking to already what they're looking to establish in the near future. It's already what they have, right? So it's all these little minute things that's in that amendment to become a UBO, even though they highlight the increased things for boxers' safety and their rights. It really also puts a very unrealistic situation for pretty much any competitor to even coexist, and that's kind of the whole goal. So at a certain point, you have to look at the fighters right now, and you can't fault them. Like, with Crawford and Canelo and these other fighters that are going to be fighting for these astronomical amount of money, they're pretty much paving the way to create a place where other fighters are going to want to fight and sign underneath that organization because they feel like they're going to get the exposure, and so that they can get the money that those guys are getting, because the other promoters are struggling to have dates and big money fights. So, and TK was backed by a big government, a country. It's not, you know what I mean? So in that case, it's going to be ironic because the places, the place that pretty much the Ali Act has allowed this to exist, which will be kind of the reason why the Ali Act itself will be amended in the way it goes if the bill gets passed. This is something like they're trying to push federally, and obviously these things are state by state. But it's just something that's not going to happen anytime soon. As in, like, what happens, like you'll see the immediate effects. What's very ironic too that I also learned about this is that when they originally made the 1996 Professional Boxing Safety Act, they had kind of like a 2-year grace period to kind of get your stuff going, right? Like, all right, whatever you guys are doing, 2 years it will take in place or whatever. Like, this won't actually happen till 2 years from now. So I think technically, even though it was passed in 2000, I don't think it actually was fully in place until 2002. So with this bill, it will be immediately active in 30 days if it gets passed, which is absolutely insane in comparison to what the Reform Act was compared to the Revival Act. And they had a lot of great marketing stuff they've done because, like, it's bipartisan. They got a Republican and Democratic. They actually have an Ali, I think one of Ali's ex-widows or something, has co-signed this. So what do you know? An Ali, quote, supports it. If Ali was around, he would totally be for it, right? So the public perception is like, yes, Ali fought for the people, and Ali's agreeing for the Revival Act, yada, yada, yada. I do know that one of the politicians claims to be a former MMA fighter, which in that sense is ironic because it has no place to really want something like this, right? Because really MMA fighters want the Muhammad Ali Act by all means. Do you think this would squeeze Pro Box out because the boxer would go over the TKO? Well, it's interesting, Temp, is that Pro Box may have a training facility, but I don't know what their what their amount of money is able to do to compete with when it comes to like health insurance per fighter and health insurance while they're training at their facility and while they're fighting, like all that type of stuff is going to be tough. I mean, I don't know if it'll technically squeeze Pro Box out at any time soon, but eventually what would happen is that, a lot of fighters won't actually want to go through what is currently now. They would want to go the path to the UBO because that's where the money's at. Like, they're always going to go where the money's at. And if the money's not with the UBO, then they're going to go the alternative route. So it's just one of those things where, by all case, the fighters have to like not fight underneath UBO standards, regardless of how good the money is and how enticing it is. They're gonna have the best fighters, like the best fighters, are gonna have to stay away from that. And eventually, they're gonna get some of the best fighters. Like that's just how it's gonna work. Like it's never going to be a way where all the fighters are going to unify for the safety of future boxers. Like at the end of the day, fighters always fight for what they feel is kind of what's best for them, you know? And I can't fault them for that. If someone's giving me 20 million over here, naturally that's the move. So, the scary thing about this too is that like if it actually does get through, right? While the MMA fighters do want the Ali Act, if hypothetically in a perfect world this bill gets passed and the boxers don't conform to the big money, or the promoters themselves or the networks get heavily involved and a lot of money gets tossed into what is normal now, and they're like, yeah, why would I go over to the TKO when Netflix is giving us a crazy amount of money, or China wants to get involved and they're giving, you know what I mean, like some sort of other extreme happens. Even if this bill passes, it still affects athletes. It affects the MMA athletes, because what would happen then at that case is that the MMA fighters would continue to ask for the Ali Act. But because if the Ali Act gets amended, then it gives the UFC the ultimate stranglehold to say, all right, if you even bring the Ali Act over, the amendment has allowed us to continue to operate the way that we're already operating as a UBO, because that's what we are. So we don't have to enforce what the Reform Act is. So it's as crazy as it sounds, it really is a death sentence more for MMA than boxing. Like in hindsight, really thinking about it, because boxers have to conform to it while MMA fighters are already conformed already. So it just locks them in that state even worse to even getting a glimpse of what potentially could be what boxers have already got into. The last thing that's very scary and very important is that the Ali Act allows fighters to audit the promoters. I don't really know if the Revival Act allows you to be able to truly audit, but at the same time, man, like it's just so much going on in the UFC. I mean, they have lawsuits that are going on. I think they have another lawsuit that's currently going on. I think they're in their second antitrust lawsuit, which they had to pay out. Well, the first one they had to pay out, I think, like almost $400 million. So, I mean, obviously you can see they're going into boxing while they're in their sport. A lot of fighters are extremely upset based on their pay. And then, so it's just very obvious that what is going on. I mean, I'm only theory crafting. Maybe they don't. Maybe they do everything for the goodness and sake for the fighters. But I just don't really see that potentially happening. But it's a very deep rabbit hole. I mean, I feel like, once again, if anyone is curious about if like anyone at FightHype themselves has an opinion on it, because I think we should talk about it. We should speak about it. I mean, people like Canelo, people like Crawford, people like David Benavidez, people like Devin Haney, people like, everyone who's fighting essentially in what could be potentially TKO cards in the future, right? I don't know if the Saudi card, the November card, becomes a form of TKO because it's after the Crawford fight. But regardless, at the end of the day, it's all leading towards that. And if enough fighters gets behind this, it's going to eventually divide what's considered where the best fighters are at. And by all means, the best fighters are going to be at where the money is at. So it's going to draw attention away from whatever it is now. So I know the very last thing I'll touch on this before I think I end most of this stream is that, a lot of people will be like, well, isn't that kind of like what PBC has? Like, they went through a lawsuit situation where Al Haymon was perceived to be a manager and advisor, and that the fighters weren't upset with him, essentially. Like, they didn't feel the need to, quote, audit or complain because, like, they were happy with the money they were getting, and he was essentially breaking the Boxing Ali Act itself. But it works, I do know that somewhere along the line that Bob Arum has sued, or Top Rank has sued PBC, and I think they've settled. And there's really no public records of the stuff like that. I know Oscar De La Hoya and Golden Boy attempted a lawsuit as well with PBC, but it was thrown out. I think he tried to sue him for like 300 million plus, and that whole situation never came out. So, by all means, I mean it's one of those gray areas where, look, I mean, some people would defend PBC and say, hey, it's a platform. They fight on a platform. They have other promoters. That's not what it is. He's an advisor. He takes a way smaller amount of money, which has been rumored, than what a manager would. He takes little to nothing, while the fighters make pretty much everything. So obviously, like, the fighters are happy. We're doing a good thing. That's what some people say, and some people fight against it and say it's not. And so, but what really kind of gotten us obviously here is that because a lot of the competitive fights haven't been made or superstars have been born, a lot of networks haven't really seen the investment put in to pan out to why they should continue going on, especially with pay-per-views going down on illegal streaming. So all this has kind of led to us in a situation where now, tomorrow, we're probably going to be wondering where Top Rank goes, wondering how many more PBC fights or cards we're going to get this year. It seems very little in between each month. While these turkey cards have been the place where Golden Boy, Top Rank match, everybody's fighting on, and that's where all the fights have been happening. It really seems like at some point that if Turkey and them are continuing to pump what seems endless money to be in, they're going to end up drowning a lot of fighters. And, you see a lot of ring card or Turkey, Saudi Arabia, Riyadh season ring ambassadors. I mean, you only have to question potentially, is that sort of a bridge to potentially more fighters to go work with Turkey in the long run, which is obviously very talented fighters. Like, every ring ambassador you see is arguably the top fighters in the sport, slowly but surely. So the idea is that the fighters now get the money and they benefit from what the Ali Act has allowed them to do, but eventually can, if this bill does get through, it hasn't went through, but if it does and a UBO is be able to be formed, that's kind of a potential direction that all of this can go. So Nixon says, oh, Mr. Quick says, I hate boxing politics. Yeah, I mean, this is the ultimate boxing politics, if anything. Nixon Keith, Al Heyman pays his prize fighters very well. Money. I mean, really haven't seen too many. I mean, I don't think you really see lawsuits for Al and things like that. But the last thing to really take on all this stuff is just really just to see how the fighters feel. There really hasn't been anything too much spoken out there, which is kind of upsetting because it only seems like all the nerdy journalist guys are talking about this, and it really doesn't really seem to be a common topic interest for boxing fans, because who cares, right? Nobody really cares, because the fans feel like, well, that's great. It's, they're overpaid. The best need to fight the best to get the money they deserve. I'm tired of waiting and watching, and they're not really fighting and whatnot. They're making all this extravagant type of money. But at the same time, you have to have some sort of rule or place to protect fighters, because they're human beings. Any decent human being would have to have some sort of understanding that they have rights too. So, and that's really what it comes down to it. If by all means creating a monopoly, all you're doing is telling them to shut up and fight, and you're stripping the rules of them, of having what seems to be some sort of fair state of being able to dispute with or prevent some sort of conflict of interest to go on into their careers, right? PBC can't continue with this pay-per-view model. I heard Pac Fight didn't do well at all. Yeah, I mean, I didn't really hear. I don't know the pay-per-view model number. I mean, I don't know the numbers. I'm not going to pretend I do, but I wouldn't necessarily confirm that it was like a sellout, like a true sellout, like every ticket was up for every seat and it sold. I mean, potentially a good amount of tickets might have been given away, but at the end of the day, if you look at it, there's a lot of immigration situation going on in America, so I don't know if some of the fan base might feel threatened, but regardless, I don't think it was like an insane sellout. And it really shouldn't. You know, Manny Pacquiao, Mario Barrios doesn't scream blockbuster, right? 46-year-old Manny Pacquiao, even though it's Manny Pacquiao. So, but you know what? How pay-per-view model goes. You know, with the pirating, I mean, it kills a lot of the revenue potentials. Think we'll see any Turkey lawsuits? Well, I mean, it's too early to speak on, right? I mean, it's potential for anything, but you know, we're talking about we're dealing with an entity that's across overseas. So, I mean, I really don't know how, you know, international law works in that sense. I mean, Bob Arum, De La Hoya, Al, they were all based in America. So, I mean, yeah, but Turkey, United States, I mean, Saudi government, you know, really don't know. And keep in mind, this whole Ali Act amendment stuff is it's here in America, you know, like it doesn't apply outside of America. So for the time being, I mean, it'll probably be more towards like TKO if anything really comes out, because the antitrust lawsuits that UFC dealt with, it's an American company, and so. But if it was based out of another country, like I don't know how this all would work out. So, but it's like I said, there's so much to this. There's so much minute things. I mean, I can go on my Twitter and I can see so many people dissecting it. Like I'm still learning about so many of the specifics and so many different analogies and so many different type of like loopholes and so many different type of backdooring and theory crafting that's coming about it. It just really just kind of sounds like the UFC, which has sort of a system already, like they're proposing, and a lot of people aren't happy with. Turkey's name isn't on any of this. Even if his name's on it, like I don't know how like you would even, you know what I mean? Like we're talking about international laws now, and I don't know, man. Like I just, it's just what it is, man. At the end of the day, man, it's one of those things we'll have to see how it plays out. It's not gonna be something that we'll see immediately, but over time, if each promoter slowly bows out, collaborates, or their fighters tend to leave them. Because think about it, if a roster of top ranked loses, what they built up is their best fighters, and they're kind of left with like the undesirable fighters. It really slowly kills that promotional company and it keeps them out. And eventually, when new entities come in, they have to be in UBO if that's where all the big fighters and fights are at. So it's a slow process where I'm sure that they're losing money while they're doing this because they have to pay out the wazoo. But when you're able to pay so much money, but then later come back and say, all right, what I was investing, I'm going to give them like 20% of the fraction of what I was paying in. You'll be able to recoup that money very fast, like very quickly. So, Wavo Combos, Office Honcho Boxing is one of the best. Yeah, he's a cool guy, man. That's my Blasian brother, man. We met at a Canelo Danny Jacobs fight. So, he's a cool guy, man. Chill guy. Haven't seen him too often. We emailed a couple times, but he's a cool dude, man. Definitely recommend his channel. He definitely talks a lot about Asian boxing, which isn't talked a lot in the States. So, if these boxers are smart, they won't sell out. I personally wouldn't trust Turkey. We'll see. I mean, Tim Tszyu essentially had a situation with Turkey, and unfortunately, he wasn't one of the best boxers on planet Earth. So, him being able to stick it to Turkey was something that really doesn't change the sport of boxing, you know? It has to be like a Canelo. It has to be like guys like Crawford's and Bivens, the Usyks, the top 10 pound for pounds. Anyone and everyone who's good has to like not really go over there. But what's the goal of everyone boxing? To make as much money possible. And when the best goes over there, the other best wants to go over there. And because the money's good and they get to fight the best for all the money as well. So the best versus the best with all the money, what fan's going to complain? Like that's kind of how everyone's gotten really excited about a lot of these Turkey cards. But for the sake of the fighters, it doesn't really help them long term if they decide to lower the pay structure. Because everyone who comes in, they're going to come with deep pockets. Al Heyman did it. Matchroom did it with the Zone. Turkey's doing it now. But then they're eventually going to have to reel in the money and start to obviously make their money back. So, and this isn't, and just to clarify too, this isn't an attack on like TKO. This isn't an attack on the UFC. I'm theory crafting, but it's really more just to kind of speak on what kind of options it leads to smaller promoters if the UBO program does bring in the best fighters. Does it allow those guys to survive? Probably not. Does it give the UBO the power to essentially create an organization where they can structure, pay, and kind of pocket a lot of the money? Of course. Does it create a structure where, if by all means, if they are the ones that create a sanctioning belt and they don't feel like this guy should fight for this belt, they're capable of essentially creating some sort of system like that? Or in order to compete for the belt, you have to sign with them to get that opportunity. And if you don't sign with them exclusively as an exclusive deal, you can't compete. While we're in an era where you're not signed to this promoter, you're not with this network, you're not tied with this guy, but the sanctioning bodies has pushed you as the mandatory to fight for that guy, which then goes to purse bids if you guys can't come together so that you guys can maximize the most amount of money. And, everybody essentially wins at that point, or loses if no one really bids. But regardless, it's the highest bid. But, it's just me really just explaining, like, all the different avenues of it. So I'm not, like I said, and this is not me shilling, like, oh, no, like, TKO, please don't let me, I want to go to your fights, or TK. I'm not doing that either. I'm just really just speaking from, like, an objective state, like, of what are the probable things that could exist through something like this. Even if it doesn't change the current Ali Act, it will allow, it's like an I don't forgot what the word is, like undermines it a little bit. It allows essentially an alternative where all they need is what's perceived as the best guys over, and then eventually just kind of slowly kills the other side. So it doesn't change the Ali Act by removing the Ali Act's Reform Act. It just creates an alternative where they're able to do what the Ali Act doesn't want you to do. So, yeah. Fireman, he seemed like a great guy, and he's very underrated. Yeah, so if Top Rank goes to DAZN, we know they bought in. Turkey owns a big share of DAZN. Yeah. And yeah, he tells the history of boxing most don't know. When did you get into boxing? How did you end up having this career? It's awesome, bro. Wavy combos. I just been a fan just like you guys. Like, I watched boxing. I took it upon myself. I had a job. I saved a lot of money. I quit that job and said, all right, I'm going to start covering boxing. And I didn't until I landed into some very solid positions where they have allowed me to make a living. So, but it's work. It's a lot of work. And it's not the easiest work. I'll tell you that. But it's something that you have to be consistent, and then it'll be consistent. But for the most part, it's just the sport of boxing. It's always going to be politics. It's always going to be some sort of situation. And even then, like, I'm not defending the sanctioning bodies. The sanctioning bodies also have their corrupt situations and things that never really technically align as it should. But, a free market is kind of always a good market, me being an American. But at the end of the day, man, want to do a quick stream, pre-fight stream tomorrow. I will be live. It'll be pretty lively in here once the Claressa Shields fight will be going on. I just wanted to go on record and speak on this a little bit, just because I do speak to so many fighters, I think it's important to put my opinion out, at least somewhere on a platform like this, and just to give my 2 cents. So, but like I predicted, once I get into the boring blah 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 stuff, the ones that do remain and want to stick around and talk about it, the few that you are around, you guys will. But tomorrow there will be a very, very live chat where it's probably going to be talking about, hey, are we going to see Claressa Shields fight old Layla Ali? Do you want to see it? That's probably going to be the thing that happens all day tomorrow. So, it just shows where boxing fans just really don't care about this stuff. They just want their fights, and I respect them for it. We've been fucked over for so many times, for so many years. It just, at a certain while, like the care for fighters just isn't like a thing, you know. But as my job, I kind of feel like I do have to care about the fighters. You know what I mean? You got to protect them because they won't training themselves. Yeah, man, I started training 2 years ago, and I like the interviews you do, man. I appreciate it, bro. I appreciate it, Wavy Combos. Appreciate it, man. Do you like play fighting games, or is Wavy Combos as in like combos like you training? Thanks for the stream, of course. And if you guys are, like I said, if you guys are interested, right? I'll share a copy of this link in here. And I told them I would, because it really is it's a really, and there's a huge transcript about this, which is insane. I need a copy about this. They did a really good job. Like, honestly, a lot of the information I got or was able to theorycraft was because I listened to this. So this is the Substacks. I think on YouTube they have Hey Not the Face. Hey Not the Face. Yeah, so John S. Nash is the guy that's going to be speaking. Stephanie Haynes is the one that's asking questions. I will also copy a link of it. Like I said, the YouTube portion is only half of it. If you want to listen to the full, it will be, you know, you pay $5 for the Substack. You can unsubscribe. But it's definitely worth a listen if you're really into it and you're really into the geeky, nerdy stuff. And you really are interested in like how this can potentially affect the sport of boxing and the foreseeable future. Not anything immediate, but what, like I said, the news of Top Rank not being with ESPN and the low amount of dates, you know, with PBC, and not really unsure of where all this will head towards. It's definitely worth to be at least well informed about it. And I'm not going to act like I'm an expert about it, and nor I will ever act like I'm an expert about it. And I'm still learning throughout my career about all this type of stuff. But, you know, you guys can learn through and with me. And if you guys do get information or privy stuff, you know, by listening to other credible sources, feel free to share. I'm not going to be opposed to listening to other theories or ideologies, you know. But, you know, you ask me as a fan of it, no, because it hurts the fighters, you know. I know boxing's broken, but it's kind of supposed to be broken, because if it's not, then you have a dictatorship that's allows to just rule all. So it needs to be broken a little bit so that people have the opportunity to flourish, and that's when you get the Money Mays and the Muhammad Ali's and all that type of stuff, because they wouldn't exist without this. But anyways, you guys have a good day. You guys check those links out if you're interested, and I'm going to end the stream. Very early stream. It's 8:52. You guys head out, man. You guys enjoy your Friday. Do something productive. You know, get something good to eat, man. And you guys stay locked in tomorrow. As always, man, appreciate you guys checking out the stream and the platform of FightHype. You guys take care.